Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.
Agreement feels good, but truth transforms. And that was the foundation of the Common Ground podcast, was being able to share that truth, because it's not subjective. It's objective. The truth is objective and absolute. If your peace depends on people agreeing with you, that it's not peace, it's a performance. And that's why we're selective about the guests that we have on here, is because we don't need the people. We're not here for the applause. We're here to get to the root of these things and to stand on that truth.
Go to somebody else and you go, I was listening to this podcast and they said this, and I don't know if I agree. What do you think about this? And you start a conversation with somebody else. That is ultimately, what I live for. I hope that when you turn off our podcast, you just don't forget it. I hope it sparks conversation between you and your friends, you and your spouses, you and your better half, because we're trying to talk about real life issues. We're trying to talk about things that actually matter. It all begins with conversations. If we as a country can start talking to each other about things that matter over the stuff that really doesn't, man, we can change the world. Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast. That's right. It is your host. It is John. You can call me Philly. And as always, the very beautiful, very special, the awesome Sydney Curtin. How you doing, Sydney?
Doing great, Philly. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And today, we don't have a guest. So
you and
what's
me,
going on? What's going on?
Old school. I'm really excited for this one. I'm not going to lie to you, especially after the week that we've had. We've been waiting to record this, and I'm so excited to get some of this information out to our listeners and fill them in about what's been going on behind the scenes. So I'm doing good.
Yes, as you can start to tell, as Sydney was saying, this is a special episode where we've done not a huge pivot, just a small pivot. And we wanted to explain the pivot, and we wanted you to understand why some things may have changed. It's not drastic. It's the same old show, same old stuff, but we've intentionally made some purposeful changes. And honestly, some of you may not even realize the changes. But I think some of you may pick up and be like, oh, why are they doing it this? So we just kind of wanted to sit down and kind of talk about it, because the very next episode you hear is going to contain those changes. So welcome, Sydney. I'm so excited to have this. It's really cool to feel like I got you on a date, dude, just me and you this time. I'm not sharing you with anybody.
Yeah, that's true. That's a first for sure. Other than maybe our Monday lives when we don't have a guest, but uninterrupted, real time, real talk time. And I love the balance that we bring to the table too, before you start by giving some of these bullet points of our change, because you're over here like, it's a tiny pivot. And my follow-up to that was almost like, it's catastrophic. Like, this is just it's gonna blow your mind in a good way. And so I love that dynamic duo that we have going on.
Yeah. And as far as the date, I feel like we're at Chick-fil-A on a father-daughter date. just to put it out there. I don't want any
just to clarify,
any angry fans of Sydney coming at me. So
it's funny.
But as always, we can't start the Common Ground podcast without a dad joke. So even though this is a special episode, but particularly because this is a special episode, I'm not going to tell my dad joke. Today I was talking with somebody and their son gave me a dad joke. So this is a shout out to Jay. And I hope, Jay, you get to hear this. So why can't the English play chess?
I don't know, Philly, why?
Because they lost their queen.
Oh, no.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold
You
on.
gotta play.
Will
Yeah,
this?
hold on.
Oh, this will not
Pause.
work. It won't work.
Oh,
'cause-
no.
I'm sorry, Jay. I was going to try to give you the clapping and
We're
and
gonna do the
everything,
sound effect.
but it wouldn't work for me. So that is, and tell you what, if anybody wants to write in and give me dad jokes, I will give you credit and I'll give you the credit for the dad joke. But it's got to be good enough to make it to the show.
There you
I'm
go.
not gonna
I like that
do
system.
a corny, but I have enough. But if one of our listeners wants to drop a dad joke, I'm all for it. So maybe your dad joke can appear on the Common Ground podcast.
That's change number one. Your dad joke can be featured on the Common Ground
Yes.
podcast.
And we'll give you a little shout out like I gave to Jay. But yeah, when I meant small, I just meant from the viewers. Like they may not like for me too. It is a drastic change. It is because it is important to us. And I think that's where you're coming from, the drasticness of it. It's something that for us, we stopped and we said, hold on, are we reaching the goals that we set out to reach here on the Common Ground podcast? And that's something I don't think enough businesses, podcasts, or whatever do is they start something with an intention, they end up in left field and doing something different. And for us, when we built this, it was built on a foundation that we wanted to see. And we wanted to say, after doing 10 episodes or whatever, we and with the whole Charlie Kirk thing happening at the same time, where it's like, this is a good time to make sure we are achieving the goals that we want to achieve and feel strongly about. And when you sit there and we're always agreeing with somebody, and our podcast is called the Common Ground Podcast, are we actually achieving those goals?
Right.
And it's funny because as to give you an insight to the background, when people come up and be guests on our show, we just don't turn on the camera and be like, oh, you want to be a guest? Here's a guest. And no, we sit down and they first have to interview with me, and then they interview with me and Sydney, and we plan out the episode. So we take a lot of intentionality to produce this, what you get to see. And in the first interview, I talk about, why we do this. And at first I was saying, that it's all about, I'm going to go through the first little part that I do. It's not going to take that long. When I sit down with people, I say, I've observed, been a part of, witnessed conversations over the entirety of my life. And I turned 50 this year, so it's 50 years of conversations. And very quickly, I noticed that people put people into a box. They want to know, do you walk like me, talk like me, act like me, speak like me, think like me, do everything like I do? And if you don't, how do I get you to walk like me, talk like me, act like me, speak like me, smell like me, and all that? And that's human nature. And there's nothing wrong with that because we believe our way is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
And what's changed over the 50 years is what happens when people don't conform to the way we think and talk and act and speak. And back in the day, we used to have conversations, but today we become divisive. And this is what I used to say. I used to say, and it goes from, as soon as we find out that you won't conform to the way we do things, it goes to name calling, to bullying, to eventually to disassociation. And what I've changed since the reset is I have added, And violence is the fourth thing that now happens, because we have gotten to a point where it's no longer name calling, it's no longer bullying, it's no longer disassociation. We've come to a point where your life has no value and violence is acceptable.
Mhm.
And that is key on why agreeing with everybody, um, and calling something the Common Ground podcast isn't enough anymore.
Mhm.
Um, so we've come up with 3 points, and actually I'm gonna have you name the 3 points because I don't want to do all the talking. This is our thing, so why don't you introduce the 3 points of that are really important to us and going to be part of our new value system?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the reasons that I was really intrigued to come on board to this project too was because of your mission behind it. And so I think that you outlined that really well. It may not feel like a huge shift for everybody, but I think that for us it keeps us focused and oriented around what our true mission is. And so those points are really truth over agreement is the first one. The second one is constructive conversation and respectful engagement, not agreement, but engagement. And the third is faith as the foundation of what we do in no particular order, because I think that they all carry equal weight for what we do in our mission here at the Common Ground Project USA.
So why don't you start with truth over agreement, and if I have anything to add, I'll add, but why don't you talk a little bit about that and I'll talk about the second one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people view when there's a disagreement, it somehow becomes a personal reflection, right? Of this is somehow become about me. It's no longer about what I believe or what you believe, but it turns into a personal attack. And truth it's not about comfort, it's about conviction and agreement. Maybe it feels good. I mean, like our first recordings were great. I mean, the people were friendly, their mission was great. I mean, but it was everything. It wasn't us finding the controversial points within the topic, not for the sake of controversy, but for the sake of understanding that person on a deeper level, why those topics mean so much to them. So agreement feels good, but truth transforms. And that was the foundation of the Common Ground podcast, was being able to share that truth, because it's not subjective. It's objective. The truth is objective and absolute. And I think that really, if your peace depends on people agreeing with you, that it's not peace, it's a performance. And that's why we're selective about the guests that we have on here, is because we don't need the people. We're not here for the applause. We're here to get to the root of these things and to stand on that truth. So that's why truth over agreement has been one of the pillars of the Common Ground podcast, and that we've made a very intentional effort to pivot back to what is the truth on this topic? How do we share that truth respectfully and intentionally?
I so love that, and I 100% I'm behind that. And also I want to add that there is so much being talked about today in many, you can go anywhere, hear anything, listen to anything. But how many people are actually trying to make sure you see the facts in what they're saying?
Mm,
See, everybody wants you to go and believe because you heard it from them. But we
mhm,
want to get to a point where we're actually showing facts, because we want you to know that what we want to talk about or what a guest wants to talk about is rooted in facts. Because
mhm,
it's all nice if it's pleasant to hear, but truth, like you said, matters. And one of the things that
mhm,
I've always said as part of my leadership style is I've always not wanted yes men around me, and that's one of the things I know I can count on Sydney for, because I love Sydney because she doesn't mind saying I don't agree with you on that. And I like that, because if I can't convince Sydney why we should be doing something, then should we be doing it? Like, and that's the way I always felt in management. If I can't convince the people who are closest to me in my level of management that I'm asking them to do the right thing, then should we be doing that? If I can't back up what I'm saying, and that's so important in even in these conversations, is we want one other thing, one other example. In college, I went to Bible college, and in a couple of my Bible classes, I had teachers who allowed me to disagree with them. And I would disagree with them almost constantly. Sometimes I actually did disagree with them. Other times I agreed with them. But I disagreed with them because I wanted to know how to defend that position because I didn't know how to defend it. I agreed with you, but if somebody would have came up and challenged me on it, I wouldn't have had any kind of defense. Well, my professor said so. That's not going to fly,
Right.
So I wanted
Yeah.
to learn how to defend what I was speaking. And so I
Mhm.
I want to make sure in our podcast that we can share truth with you. You can make the decision on whether you agree with it or disagree with it. But we want to try to make sure that what we're saying we believe and we can back it up.
Yeah.
So
And I think that when
so
people
yeah.
continue to listen to these episode releases too, that what they're going to find is that it's not in a controversial sense. I mean, there's been a handful of people on our show even prior to this slight change that we haven't agreed with, and we've still been able to do exactly what our mission is and find the common ground with. But I would rather be divided on a topic than united in something that I'm convicted is not truth. And the bottom line is that we're not here to be popular. We're here to be honest. And that is something that brings people to the Common Ground podcast is we are not here to pat you on the back and say, hey, I respect that opinion. I can respect your opinion and still have a conversation with you about it that's constructive. And that really is the foundation of that truth over agreement pillar for us.
Yeah, and again, I love our podcast. I love how we do it. There's been multiple times where Sydney goes, well, I disagree with the two of you. So, and there's been times where I'm like, yeah, I kind of see it a different way. And that's the beauty. And nobody should lose value because we disagree. But we should also come with facts and come with stuff to support what we're saying. So, point number 2 is constructive conversation and engagement. And this is another one that, again, I like you kind of said this a little bit in the first one. This isn't for clicks. This isn't for creating some kind of drama or unnecessary thing. This is for creating a deeper conversation. And like for me, like I don't want to have a shallow podcast. Yes, we try to keep most of our episodes to an hour 15 minutes. And sometimes that does limit how deep we can get, but I don't want to just be surface level. I want us to actually examine subjects, and I want us to take deeper looks at subjects and say, okay, even if we all agree, is there something that we're missing? What happens if somebody disagrees with us and comes this way with it? How do we feel about it? So it's about, again, doing what I was doing in those classrooms, like learning how to defend or learning, or just being like, listen, I don't agree. And creating that deeper and getting necessarily not drama, but okay, let's just not go surface level. Let's dig in a little deeper. Let's really examine a subject. And I love it because that's why we allow basically our guests to dictate the topics, because we want them to come with as much authority as they can, and then we can come from people who don't have that authority, or maybe have a different authority, or still have some authority, and question it and have that conversation and be like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Again, it's not to put down our guests. It's not ever to disrespect our guests. And that's and to
I
we
mean,
would love to have your engagement as listeners also. We really want to hear your comments and hear everything.
when you started the Common Ground, Yeah, when you started the Common Ground Project USA, the first example that you gave me when we became partners was that you would see people on Facebook posts and that they're not really reading or comprehending the other person's perspective or point of view. They are just reading to respond. Like, here's the fact that I'm just going to rebuke back out. It's literally like a used car salesman. Like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to buy. Yes, you are. Let's see the numbers. Like, you're just selling your opinion, and it's not to understand the other person's perspective or their point of view, so that, like you said on our previous pillar, you can actually strengthen your argument by doing that. So the Common Ground Project, the Common Ground Podcast USA, all of that is not about common thinking. It's about common respect. And there's a difference there. We don't have to see eye to eye to stand heart to heart. And that kind of ties into our third pillar that we'll be talking about here in a minute as well. But, it's about real dialogue isn't about who wins the argument or the debate. It's about who listens. And we want our guests to be able to come to the table ready to talk and ready to learn the same way that we do. I mean, when we ask questions, these are not staged, preconceived questions that we have a rebuttal for off the top of our head. And I've been on podcasts like that where I have felt that the questions were so deliberate that they had put me in a corner because they wanted me to respond some way so that they could follow that with the next question, but it wasn't to understand what I was saying. So we've done that differently. We've done it more constructively, and we've done it in a way where people can bring their thoughts and opinions to the table, whether it's on the show or in the comments section.
Again, that's for me, and you guys can tell me if it's different. But for me, one of the things I love that we have Sydney, who comes from things from a real intellect and point of view, and can really speak authority on stuff. And I think I come from this, like, okay, this is what I hear, this is what I'm getting from it. What do you think about this? And I think that blends really, really well to create the kind of atmosphere that we're trying to create. Another thing that you said that I absolutely love is that the Common Ground podcast, the common ground part of it isn't agreement in thought, it's agreement in respect. And that goes back to, like, every life is valuable, every person is valuable, even if we disagree, I know we are in such an intense time where politicians will tell us that this vote is life or death, this vote is saving our country or killing our country. They love to put that weight upon your shoulders, and I know that everybody is going around and carrying that, and they feel the burden of, oh, if this person gets elected or that person gets elected, that either our country is going to survive or be destroyed. Listen, we've had 47 presidents. Dude, we will make it.
Yeah.
No matter who's in office, we can
will
survive.
make it.
Yes. But we won't make it if we stop valuing each other, because that's what
true.
holds our nation together. Like, if we get to a point where literally it's do or die with your neighbor, then this country is lost. And we can still prevent that from happening. There's still great hope in this country, no matter who is leading it, as long as we don't forget our identity and always be willing to value our neighbor and each other.
I think that, and in honor of the fact that a lot of these changes were onset by the events of Charlie Kirk, I feel like that's what you said is so beautiful. You can disagree with somebody's point of view and still value their humanity. But if you can't sit across from a table from somebody who challenges you, then you're not protecting truth, you're protecting your ego. And one of the things that Charlie used to say is that when people stop talking, bad things happen. And divorce happens was another line that he said. When people stop talking, divorce happens. And it's why we've got this very, very divided two-party system. And I know that the Common Ground podcast is not a political podcast. However, the intricacies of politics and religion are intertwined into so many of the topics that we do talk about on our show. And that's why we want to have guests that can have those real dialogue. And if your beliefs can't stand up to civil conversation like we have, then they weren't built on much to begin with.
That's right on topic. And why don't you lead us into that third point?
This one should have been we should have done this in a different way, because this is like your background. So also it'll be good to wrap up with this pillar. So
I
our
love the
third
fact that
pillar
you're
is
getting to introduce it.
okay. All right. Well, our third pillar is faith as the foundation. And John and I are strong believers. We love the Lord. And Jesus is not just our example, but he's our filter for every word that we speak on our podcast. And no, we're not perfect. And no, this is also not a religious podcast, as I previously stated. But if faith isn't at the center of everything that we do, then everything else just becomes noise. And John and I know from our position of faith that our job as believers is to disciple people in the word, that we can hold accountable to the word if they are already believers. We've talked about that on some of our shows with other guests. And we know that it's to be a light and to be salt for those who don't yet know the Lord. And so that's something that we are more intentionally bringing to the focus of conversation, specifically topics that may be deemed more secular, where we can question them, not from a position of religion, but from my point of faith. This says this. How would you respond to that from the position that you come from, and just leave those seeds to be planted?
I know when we first started this, I wanted everybody to feel safe and feel like they could come on this program. And to me, one of the things that we absolutely believe in is creating a safe space for you to speak. Not saying we're going to agree with you, not saying that we're not going to talk about truth, but that you will be respected, that you will be, feel safe to share your point of view. One of the things I think for me personally that I did was I sacrificed some of my truth to try to make sure that people felt safe. And going back to point one, where truth is important, I had to sit back and say, well, I'm not being truthful to myself. I'm not being truthful to me. And we're not being truthful. We have a relationship with Christ, and we shouldn't dampen that because we want to make somebody feel safe. We hope that regardless that you'll feel safe, we will not have you because you are a different religion, different belief, something different in us. We will gladly have you.
Yeah.
But
and we
got
just to clarify, I mean, we have people come at this from all positions of faith.
Yeah. And I know for me, I started a little more timid, and I've come more because I realized that I wasn't being truthful to myself in trying to create that safe space. But I think that safe space can be created, and I can still be truthful to myself. And the thing is, we're not here to shove our religion down your throat. We're not here to say that our truth has to be your truth. What we are here is to have conversation, and you have the right to decide whether you want to believe our truth, believe the guest's truth, or believe your own truth. But let's have a conversation. Let's do that in a safe place with valuing each other. And that is the beauty of America, and why we every episode end with God bless you, and God bless America, because it's important to us. It is who we are. And so faith is our foundation, and so it's the foundation of the truths that we hold on to. And again, we will have you if you don't hold on to that. We will gladly sit down with you and have a conversation and allow people to make up their own mind. We're not going to stop and say, well, know what, you don't believe in what we believe, you can't be a part of it. No, but we understand we will be sharing our faith and our perspective from that.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important too to note that because, like, just to give some examples, we've had people on our show that come from an Islamic background, from an agnostic, atheist, holistic, Mother Earth, like that. We've had people on from all different faiths, and just to be clear, the topic of those episodes wasn't even about faith most of the time. If anything, it's questions thrown in about, like I said earlier, from our position of faith. This is something that we look at this topic through. How does your side of the coin respond to that? Because it's true, we're not here to sell our opinions. We're there to share truth through a lens of grace. Jesus didn't win arguments, he won hearts. And that's the example that we have put ourselves in following is like, I'm just here to love on you, to get to know you, to appreciate you as the creation that you were created to be. Like that's where we come at this from. It's not from this philosophical, theological debate about religion, but it's true. Faith also isn't just a segment on the show. It's the structure holding the whole thing up. That doesn't mean, like you said, we cram it down your throat. It means that it's the nuts and bolts, it's the skeleton and the backbone of how we come into these conversations and how we choose to let the conversations develop organically too. It's how you and I lead. It's not the actual topic of the conversation most of the time. And I think that the most important thing for you and me, I'm going to speak on behalf of both of us, has become that at the end of the day, if people remember us and forget him, then we missed the whole point.
You can say that again. That is, again, from your perspective, it may not be a huge change. From our perspective, these three core values mean a lot to us. And for us, there is a huge change because we are definitely focusing on these aspects to make sure that they are present in our show. I hope it doesn't change the fact that you listen to the show. I mean, if you choose that you can no longer watch it, I respect that, you know? Listen, no hate. Again, it's your choice to choose your truth, you know? But we are going to speak our truth and not be ashamed of it. I hope you go on this journey with us because I think it's going to be an awesome journey. And I think it's an opportunity for us really to start conversations. One of the cool things, and I don't say this enough, is I don't expect that when you listen to our show that you get all the answers. My goal actually is that you listen to our show and you go to somebody else and you go, you know, I was listening to this podcast and they said this, and I don't know if I agree. What do you think about this? And you start a conversation with somebody else. That is ultimately, you know, what I live for. You know, I hope that when you turn off our podcast, you just don't forget it. I hope it sparks conversation between you and your friends, you and your spouses, you and your better halves, because we're trying to talk about real life issues. We're trying to talk about things that actually matter. And it all begins with conversations. It all begins. And hopefully you carry those conversations on and have even deeper conversations. Because if we as a country can start talking to each other about things that matter over the stuff that really doesn't, man, we can change the world.
Well, I think that that really thoroughly sums up some of the changes that we're going to be making. I know that John and I are both really excited about how this is going to look in application on the shows and the different layers and dynamics that it's going to bring to the table for conversation with our listeners and our guests. And then we're also rolling out something pretty cool. So in our concluding here, John, would you tell our listeners what it is that we're going to be doing for the rest of our audience?
Yes. And let me just start out by this. In case you've ever wondered why you'll see the Common Ground Project USA and the Common Ground podcast, the Common Ground Project USA is the bigger vision of what we want to accomplish. The podcast is the heart and soul. It's the story part of it. It's us starting conversations. But one of the next things that we want to do is we are creating a podcast channel, and we are creating a mentorship program. And it's really designed for those who would love to do a podcast, don't have any clue on what to do, where to begin, how to start. Um, but it also can include some people who have maybe started a podcast and it's not working out. Things aren't going well. They really love doing it, but they figure they're missing something. They're welcome in here. So we will start taking some applications, and starting in January, we will roll out, begin the mentorship program. But you can apply up till then. But what it does is there's a small classroom feature, which will just teach you some basics on it. But then we walk through a 4-stage thing. We have you to become an assistant producer, then you move up to producer, then to co-host, and then we help you develop a show. But in there, you learn all the different aspects of what it takes to build, from editing, from booking guests or not booking guests, from if you're not booking guests, how to prepare and set up, all the different things you need to worry about, lighting, programs, all this kind of stuff that means everything to how your podcast runs is all talked about and all trained, and you get to experience all of that. Yeah, maybe you go to me, I won't be editing, but you should still know the editing process. You still have edited an episode so you know what it takes and what demands you're going to put on somebody. So you realistically know what they can handle. So this is, and I'll say, in the first class or the first group of people that we take, there's not going to be a cost, but there's going to be a cost down the road, because this is time, energy, all this kind of stuff. It costs. It's going to cost me my time, Sydney her time, all of us to pour into this. It's not cheap. But for the first class that we go through, we want to prove it. We want to show people that you can come out and learn. So I definitely, if it's something you're interested in, you can apply. I haven't figured out how many people we're going to accept, because again, it's free. It's costly to us. But we want to see people build podcasts, have their own voice, be able to, have a future. With AI coming, dude, there's a lot of stuff that, a lot of jobs are going to disappear. What are you building for your future? What are you building to solidify your family and your legacy? Podcasting is still on the way up. Podcasting still has a lot of growth to go, and is a very important, and I believe it's at a crucial time. And that's why we're doing this, So if you're interested, I will be putting a link up on our webpage. But until then, you can reach out through Instagram at Philly Go Live. You can reach out to Sydney on Instagram. You want to give them your Instagram?
Coach_Sydney Curtin. Y'all already know, though.
So reach out to us. Tell us that you're interested. Tell us, and we'll get you a link to, get a interview and talk about whether you might be a right fit for this. But we got many plans in the future. So we're going places. We're going to be doing major stuff. The Common Ground Project USA is just getting started. Let me just say that. As far as other things, please don't forget to, every Monday night, we have the Monday Happy Hour on TikTok. So follow us on TikTok. Make sure you're following us on TikTok every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. MST. Make sure you're there. I am trying to convince, and Sydney will eventually, at some point in 2026, I'm speaking it into existence, have her own show, which she is leading. So that is going to come out in the future. So there's a lot of cool things coming. Make sure you're a part of it. Make sure you're watching. Make sure you're following. And anything else you want to add?
No, you can close us out, Philly.
So remember, when we take the time to hear someone's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. As always, for Sydney and myself, we are your hosts, and you have been listening to the Common Ground Podcast. God bless and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground Podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground Podcast.